Oh, he good. Come on in here. Yeah.
Okay, I'm walking in. Let's do it.
Yeah, boy got that whole water bottle too.
What up with you?
Yeah, what up, dog?
Bro.
Man,
Chilling, man.
What's up, baby?
I'm doing all right, sir. How about yourself?
Man, you got that Black Panther body.
Man, you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. That's what they tell you.
That's what we trying to tell Channing.
I'm just,
Nah.
you look good.
Appreciate you,
look
brother.
Great.
Channing's been retired for 20 years, haven't worked out since.
I let God take the wheel.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You haven't worked out at all.
I don't run, I don't work out, I don't do nothing.
And he
Then
brags
how do you
about it.
maintain that?
My Lord and Savior.
Bro, I don't. So do you live pretty clean, like in terms of what your diet is? What do you?
Yeah, I don't eat a lot, but I drink a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bruh, that's
I'm telling
amazing. That's like genes. You gifted gene-wise then, is that it?
Yeah, my daddy played and my mom. Yeah, I'm mixed, so you know I'm a hybrid.
Oh,
And
Lord.
so
What does mix have to do with your
Where you going
genetics, your
straight
blood?
to
that's
it?
a hybrid.
I'm mixed.
I'm mixed.
That's what we leading with.
Hey, Chan, tell him what you want to be treated like most times, though.
I tell him treat me like a white man.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about it.
Understood.
Yeah. We're
Understood.
gonna talk about the experience you've had in Hollywood and all. But I tell them, no, when I walk in, don't look at me as a big black dude with dreads and tattoos.
Yeah.
Look at me as a white man and treat me that.
Understood. Listen, in terms of how we raise our kids right now, like this, and you'll segue and you lead the conversation,
it,
right?
yeah.
But we had this whole thing, my wife and I, about how we chose not to use corporal punishment for a very specific reason. We grew up all, I'm sure, in a generation of like seen, not heard. Being a well-behaved child meant you knew how to mind your manners, you weren't speaking back to people, et cetera, et cetera. We wanted our kids to know that their voice had power, right? And that even though they may not always get their say in something, we will always let them be heard. And then we'll make the ultimate decision on it, right? And sort of like giving them permission to sort of take space is kind of like what I look at as white privilege. When I was at Stanford and I would see people go into office hours and do these things, I had this mindset of like, oh, don't bother the professor, they busy. Just go figure it out for yourself and take care of it. That's not what other people were doing. They were knocking on those doors, making sure they were finding mentorship and letting people know that like, I need help in developing those relationships. I want my kids to experience that same sort of thing. So what you're talking about, even though you're saying it comically, I know exactly what you mean.
Yes, sir.
Hold up, limitless, take a stomach, got pin in it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling, got me up. On the mission, got me up. Knowing me, I got the key. Only vision I can trust. Limitless, take a stomach, got pin in it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant.
For the people who are listening, the voice you hear is Sterling K. Brown. For people who are watching, I'm sure you've seen him all over the place. An Emmy winner, Golden Globe winner, and just an all-around great dude, a great human. Welcome to the show. This is The Pivot. This is Fred Taylor.
Yes,
This is
sir.
Channing Crowder. I'm Ryan Clark, Pivot fam. Thank you for pivoting with us. I love your name, by the way, Sterling K. Brown.
Thanks,
I
man.
love your name. Have you ever been able to verify your mother's story about why you were called Kelby for so long?
Well, I remember, so you know, I like that Ryan does research. This is good. And all producers, thank you. I like to recognize the whole team. I know it's a team effort that goes in behind this thing. First day of kindergarten, they had you write your name. And I wrote down Sterling Brown. And then I was like, Sterling is 8 letters. Kelby, my middle name, is 5 letters. So I said, Mom, I'm just gonna go by Kelby until I turn 16. And then when I'm 16, I'll go by Sterling, right? And so my dad is Sterling Brown Jr., who passed away when I was 10 years old. And it was interesting, like around 16, I didn't remember that story that my mom told me, but I'm a sophomore in high school, and I just felt like I wanna hear my dad's name. I guess when I was a young kid, it felt like an old name. Sterling felt like sort of big, and I'm a little kid. Kelby felt right for that. And then at a certain point, I just wanted to hear, it wasn't that I felt like an adult, I just had missed hearing his name out loud. And I said, well, maybe I have his name. I'm just gonna have people call me him so I could hear it. And some people make the transition. Some people don't make the transition. You go back to St. Louis, half people still call you Kelby. What up, Kelb? How you doing? And you're totally fine with that. But if you met me past 16, they'd be like, you went by Kelby? And I was like, yeah, totally.
With your father passing, and you can touch on it,
Sure.
tell the story, and it's the experience and the day it happened is a cool story that I love you to tell. But what did that do to you as a man now? What did that do to you
moving forward? Because people lose people.
Yeah.
And you can go two different directions. It seems as if that might have jump-started something in you.
It very well may have. You know what was interesting? So my dad and mom were really good yin and yang. My mom has a lot of master's degrees. She's an educator. She has a master's in divinity. She has a master's in education, etc. My dad is very street smart. If you play Monopoly, if you play dominoes, you're gonna run spades, my dad will slice you. Mama can't play nothing. Mama can't even play Scrabble. And Mama has a better vocabulary than everybody in the family. But Mama be opening up triple word scores, triple letter scores. I'm like, Mama, you gotta play defense while you playing offense at the same time. My dad would smoke all of us, right? So we had street smarts, we had book smarts, they come together and they make a really nice package. What happened when he passed away, because my mom wanted me to go to this school in St. Louis called St. Louis Country Day, private school, all boys. And my dad, having good old-fashioned Midwestern homophobia, was like, I don't know if I want him to do all-boys school. That's sort of weird thing, right? He passed away. She said, it's me and you now, partner. And she said, you're gonna go to this school. And I remember when I went to visit the school, coming from public school, they had the one black kid who is in his class in 5th grade, who's now one of my best friends. I'm not gonna say his name, because I'm gonna say something disparaging and then I'm gonna walk it back. I remember when he showed me around the school, and I played soccer. I played like AYSO, that sort of thing. I played soccer with a lot of the guys who were going to the school, right? And they were all excited because they're like, yo, we get to put on pads in the 5th grade. We just had our first year of football. And when you get here, dude, like, oh my God, we can't wait to get you on. You know, white cats looking at you like, oh my God. We're so excited.
We finna get Jerry Rice.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so excited. It's gonna be
Be
incredible.
on my team.
My friend, and I remember going back and Mom's goes, how was it? And the dude who showed me around, I said, Mom, it was cool. I said, there's only one black guy in the class. And she said, was he nice? I said, yeah, he was nice. And I remember in my 10-year-old mind, I said, but if I took a towel and wiped it, I felt like all the black might come off. Now that was me having a very narrow definition at age 9 of what it meant to be black, right? He's now one of my best friends. He's an invasive cardiologist, like he's a bad boy, right? But the school itself and her decision to send me there was revolutionary. I didn't like the first year or so. It's hard being in predominantly white spaces when you just feel the gaze on you all the time. And you know that. You know in the 80s, you guys were same age here, there's a certain sort of recognition that if I don't succeed, the opportunities for people who look like me may become fewer and further between, right? And so that's a lot on a 10, 11-year-old kid. And I don't know if I could articulate it that way then, but you still have a feeling of like, all right, people are looking at me and they're gonna make a decision about people who look like me based upon how I do in this environment, right? So fast forward, the 5 guys who wound up being in my class, 5 out of 126, 2 of us went to Stanford, 1 Harvard, 1 MIT, 1 Yale, right? And we never talked about it, but it was like this unspoken sort of thing that like, listen, a lot of folks will think that we're here because of affirmative action, et cetera, et cetera. And affirmative action, I think, is a wonderful thing that should still be in play because there's no way that we fully caught up in terms of where we started in this society, in this country, and where we are now, right? All we want, all we're looking for is an opportunity. You give us an opportunity, then it's up to us whether or not we take advantage of said opportunity or not, right? Mom made that decision because she was a school teacher in the school district that I would have gone to. And it was a good school district, Ladue School District. But her perspective was one that the black boys in school were not being encouraged to do anything along the base common denominator. Just graduate, C average, get your car, have rims, put a couple of 12s in the back, get a little neon on the bottom, you're living the dream. You know what I'm saying? Like that was like the end game for a lot of folks. And she's like, no, that's not what I want. And when you're young, listen, you guys know through peer influence supersedes parental influence by the time you get to about middle school or whatnot. The only control you have as a parent, besides having conversations, et cetera, is who are you circling around your kids and what is their mindset towards what they want to do with their futures, right? So in terms of Mom making that decision, it was big. His passing also, I never felt saddled with being the man of the house per se. Maybe to a certain extent because it was my mom and I, I still had an older brother and an older sister who were very much around. My sister lived down the street, and my 4 nieces and nephews from her, I watched them all grow up. My brother came back home and lived for a while. They're 14 and 12 and a half years older than me, right? So we have a wonderful relationship that started more uncle, nephew, and then now we're brother, sister. I don't know, man. I don't have a hard luck sort of thing. I had a mom who cared deeply about education, a mom who saw potential. You know what it's like when you look at your kids and they come home and they get a B, but you know they're an A student? And you're like, all right, this is fine, but I know what you're capable of. You know when your kid is a D student, if they get a C, you're like, yo, bro, you balled out. You know what I'm saying? So my mom saw within me the potential for something, and she wanted to make sure I got a chance to realize it as fully as possible.
You spoke about the diversity in your upbringing.
Yeah.
And being exposed to both sides, and the environment. How important is representation in your life in Hollywood?
I mean, it's massively important. When you're able to see someone who looks like you doing something that you didn't know was possible, your imagination opens up just like that to say like, oh, snap. Like, this is a possibility. Look, this is gonna sound really strange. I used to love 24 back in the day. I don't think it is a coincidence that President David Palmer, who was a black man on the show 24, preceded Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. You put that into the zeitgeist, you know, people see it. Morgan Freeman playing presidents in a couple of different things, playing God, and so, like, you put it in the zeitgeist and it sort of becomes a part of popular culture and then of the subconscious of society. And then when Barack Obama comes along, it doesn't seem as far-fetched. People saw it. People saw it on like one of the #1 shows on TV. You know what I'm saying? It's massive. We need it in front of the camera and behind the camera. You know what I'm saying? So that we can tell stories that are race-specific and not race-blind, that have a certain sort of context, people who have lived experience. Back in the day, there's so many shows where the creators of them were of a different sort of background than people that ran it. You know what I'm saying? Stanford and Son, Jefferson's, and they would have to have real fights with the people who were writing it to make sure that it sounded the way that it was supposed to sound, to make sure that the story was being told the way it was supposed to be told. But it's nice when there's some sort of synchronicity between the people who are telling the story and the people who are playing it out. So we're getting to that place. When I first started in this industry, it was so much about race blind, you know, like putting me into a role that could have been intended for a white dude. You know, they would say all ethnicities considered. And I think that's a good thing. But now I'm looking for roles that say like, oh, we need a black man to play this role because this is the story that we're trying to tell, and it's necessary to do that. We need a Korean woman to tell this story. We need like race specific rather than race blind.
So how was it when you got an opportunity to read for Randle Pearson? Because it's a very specific black male role.
Yeah, dream come true. It was awesome. I read that pilot, and Fogelman, Dan Fogelman, who is the creator of This Is Us, he hates it when I say this. I'll say, it was the best network television pilot I've ever read. And then he's like, why you gotta be, putting an asterisk next to my pilot? It is a great, great pilot. And I say that just for Dan knows, because I also read The Wire. I remember reading for Stringer Bell. I was like, Dan, that was a pretty damn good pilot. I did a TV show for 6 years before This Is Us called Army Wives on Lifetime. And it wound up becoming race specific, but you had to sort of massage it a little bit. This one didn't require the same sort of massaging because he saw it from the beginning as like, this transracial adoptee who's figuring out his own blackness in the context of being raised by white people, being abandoned by his birth father, and having this complex of not enoughness, right? Am I black enough? Am I smart enough? If I am enough, then maybe people will want me. People will love me. I think a lot of Randle's, what I like to call a dorkability, has to do with like wanting to be accepted wherever he is. Right? Because he was abandoned. Part of his life is being abandoned from jump and not wanting to have to experience abandonment again, right? So that show Like I do a podcast for it right now. That Was Us. The text thread for everybody on it, it's family. It was a magical 6 years of my life. It's gonna be hard to beat. I've done other things and I'm excited for what the future holds, and I'm hoping that God, the universe says, all right, let's I'm gonna show you how we're gonna one-up it. I'm looking forward to when it comes, because this one still is.
I can't act, right?
No?
I wish I could, because people would like me more. Because like if I feel it, you know it, because I'll tell you.
Yeah.
When you're that deeply involved and you all become this family. You know, I watched the show in like 3 weeks.
I know.
The entire show.
Crazy.
Right? And so that was like the hardest 3 weeks of my life. Like I lost like 2 fathers. Right? I lost the same 2 fathers that you lost.
Yeah, man.
And I already knew I was gonna lose them, and I was shook. Right. So what sort of way do you have to tap in emotionally and mentally and even physically to be able to bring forth your character, Randle Pearson, in the way that you did, but to bring forth such a show of connectivity between all the people in that way?
It's a great question. I look at acting a lot like being an athlete. Like even when I first got to undergrad, my wife and I did our first play together. And I said, let's go to play practice. And she said, you mean rehearsal? I said, yeah, play practice. And then when you get to the midway point in the show, I was like, all right, it's halftime. And she said, you mean intermission? I was like, Saint, don't be messing with my words. I know what I'm talking about. There is a certain physicality. Your body is your instrument, right? So there's a certain level of fluidity that you have to have in order to let emotion flow through you. I went to grad school at NYU, and when I first got there, I was probably a little bit bigger than what I am now. I had like a 17.5-inch neck, like a big dude, right? And they said, you have to stop working out. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? They're like, listen, you're so tight right now that it's hard for emotion to move easily through your body. So it became a lot of yoga, a lot of cardio, and just sort of like working on your flexibility so that when something came up, your instinct wasn't to hold it. Your instinct is to sort of release and just sort of let it travel through you, right? So there's a lot of physical preparation. There's a lot of vocal preparation. People ask me about the tears. The tears is this, it's water. Like, honest to goodness, you can't cry if you ain't got no water inside of you.
You cried a lot, though.
You do cry a lot.
I'm not scared of y'all. I'm not scared, I'm not ashamed. Listen, so it was interesting. I can remember the first time I saw my dad cry, and it wasn't anything serious. We were watching a movie, Jack Nicholson movie called Prizzi's Honor. And like, he thought, there's this shot in the movie where he thinks that the dude gets shot, but he doesn't. Like, the bullet goes into the pillow. And my dad was so shook by this thing, like he was about to like freak out or whatnot. My dad just, he was in the military. He was the dude at the barber shop who everybody knew. Like, when the bones got thrown down, he was gonna take everybody to school. But at no point in time did he have an issue with sharing his emotions with me. He was that dude that Dad kissed on the lips. I remember I was 8 or 9. He said, go and give your dad a kiss. I'm like, all right, Dad. I give him the cheek. He's like, you too old to kiss your dad? All right, man, come on. Do this kiss, right? And I catch myself with my kids. I'm the one person in the world, when that Tom Brady tape came out, and they're like, God, look at what Tom Brady did to his kid. And I was like, yeah, okay.
I like the GOAT.
I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. And they're like, you don't think that's a little much? I was like, should I think this? I cry, yeah, but that is also, you're talking about, you said, I can't act because when I think something, people know it. The trick about acting, as far as I consider it, is you try to invest yourself into the given circumstances of that character so fully that it's not about pretending, it's about living that person's truth. And so when you're invested in what has happened in their life in the past, what they want to do in the present, when something happens, you react as if, right? It's not about trying to pretend to fool somebody. It's about, no, this is how I feel in this moment. As Randle Pearson, this is what would happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alex Cross, Hodge.
Yeah.
They got to play. I just saw an interview with him, and he was saying that when they gave him that script, he looked back at him and was like, was this written for a black man?
Right.
Because it's different ways that we talk, it's different cultural
Sure.
differences when we approach it.
Yes.
On the other side of that, could you change a white man's role into more black, I guess I'd say? Where
can.
like, you could come and be like, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that.
You absolutely can.
You
and
can?
you have to be at a certain place in your career where they'll hear you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're starting and you're first out of school, it's a little bit more difficult, right? Because you have not as much seniority or what have you. But I feel like I've reached a place, because all this is the homie. He's a great actor. You want to talk about Diesel, that boy, Lord of mercy. But I've gained enough currency where I say, listen, I like this script. I think it's pretty solid. There's a few things that I think are necessary. If we're going to make it race specific instead of just race blind, that I would like to talk to you about. And most times, folks are open to that. My experience in dealing with that sort of thing in Hollywood has been really, really positive, because I know a lot of people who are accustomed to not being heard. And I don't know what it is about me that allows folks to be able to hear what I have to say about it. I come from a place of love, and I'm never trying to make anybody look smaller than. I'm trying to help them tell the best story possible now that we have the pieces all together. And they're usually pretty receptive to that. To God be the glory.
I can't imagine you playing Stringer Bell.
Bruh,
That would have been crazy.
Listen, that one.
Until Omar showed up.
I mean, listen.
It would have been good until then.
That show, when I first saw it, I was like, man, I was so close to getting this joint. And to see like how like Idris's career took off. And at the same time, I was having this conversation with my wife. What's mine is mine. Has always been mine. What's Idris's is Idris's. When I see him, it's all love. So often they will try to pit us against each other. They'll try to make the Americans not like the Brits, vice versa. There's enough on the table for everybody to eat, right? I do not adhere to the law of scarcity. My God is a big, big God, right? And whatever it is that I'm supposed to have, I'm gonna have it. So it allows me the space to give love when people get a chance to receive an opportunity, because that's what I want. You reap what you sow. Throwing out love, bro.
All right, with that, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from a role or a character that you've played?
Yeah.
And how has it affected your personal life?
Biggest lesson. I mean, Randle's a great father. And I guess, so this is not a lesson learned. This is like, he has daughters and I have sons. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, I'm with these little girls who are now young ladies. I'm like, that would have been nice. It would have been nice to have I love my boy. Right. Like, to people, I was like, it would have been nice to have a little girl. You know what's interesting? I'll tell you, playing Christopher Darden in The People versus O.J.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Because we're the same age. So we were in college when the whole O.J. thing went down. And like, it was a microcosm of America. I lived in a dorm at Stanford University called Ujima. And it was the African-American theme house. We have 4 ethnic theme houses. Latino, African-American, Asian-American, Native American. I lived in the African-American theme house. Half of the ethnicity is black and half is other. So if everybody was watching this trial, bruh, and they announced the verdict, not guilty, and the black people were like, oh, yeah. And all the non-black people were like, oh, what? Yeah. Like, it was amazing, because that happened all across the country, right? Because there was no understanding from everybody else. It's like, we're not used to the criminal justice system working on the behalf of anybody that looks like us. It didn't even have to do with those 2 people necessarily losing their lives. It's just how things tend to go for us, right? So then, like, Christopher Darden was persona non grata. Like, you on the wrong side, bro. Like, what are you doing? You trying to take down one of the heroes. We only have so many. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Why are you trying? So then I had to play it.
That was crazy. I can imagine.
And I remember I read his book. And Jeffrey Toobin has this book called The People versus O.J. Simpson. And it was very interesting just to sort of get inside the mindset of the prosecution and the evidence that sort of like, the evidence will say, if O.J. didn't do it, he was present. DNA evidence was sort of kind of overwhelming. And DNA, they didn't have a very full understanding of what it was at the time. I think it is that role in particular, because you can't judge somebody and play them at the same time, right? If I came into it being like, this dude is a buster, whatever I felt when I was 18, 19 years old, and brought that to the character, that wouldn't have worked, right? You don't have to love every character you play, but you have to understand why they do what they do. And I think in that way, each character allows me to release a little bit of judgment about what I may have had towards them and lead with a little bit more love, right? Because I think ultimately my mission in life is to be able to understand and relate to people, especially in as divisive a time as we live in right now. We're immediately post-election and it was a week for a lot of people of just sort of like exhaling and figuring out what next, right? And I have to fight within myself not to vilify anyone who thinks differently, who voted differently, et cetera, et cetera. And I wrestle with it. But I ultimately want to lead with love. And this acting journey has really been beneficial in that way, because you're gonna play tons of different people. They're not all gonna think the same way that you do. They're not all gonna have the same values that you do, but you have to try to figure out a way inside of said individual so that you can understand why they walk through life the way that they do. And I can only imagine, I know you guys are asking me questions, but I think being in the league must have been fascinating in that you have people from all different kinds of backgrounds. Like, there's no monolithic sort of thing. You got people who are probably as far right as right can be, as far left as left can be, and with the 53, you figure out a way to sort of like gel and make that stuff work. So I'm gonna flip it for a second. I'm curious, like,
You gotta say, I'm gonna pivot for a second.
Let me pivot for a second. Let me pivot for a second. Like, I'm curious, in terms of just politics, because you guys don't shy away from anything. But at that time in your career, is it something that's just not discussed, or is it discussed in pockets?
I think I could go first, because I'm kind of the most vocal about it now. Yeah. It was never like this.
Really?
You spoke about 2016. I think that was the precipice that started the separation to where you had to pick a side, to where conversations about where and who and how you'd vote began. Because suddenly voting had a symbol, right? Even if you were going to vote for President Barack Obama at the time, there was no, the side of John McCain didn't see you a certain way because you did that. The side of Mitt Romney didn't see you a way because you did that. The same for us.
Right.
If you were going to vote for those people, that was the way your politics leaned.
Yeah.
I think now it's become more separate and more divisive. I would definitely have a different view and more difficulty dealing with it now than I did then.
Understood.
And so I think that's the huge difference that we had, and y'all can speak for yourself, the huge difference that we had during our time.
I would say Barack's first term, I was in the league, and I had an Obama sticker on the back of my pickup truck. And it wasn't nothing nasty with it. To RC's point, like, we had our kicker was a, Republican through and through. He beat, everybody knew it. He was going on CNN and stuff talking about it. We had no problem. Go out there and make your kicks. I'm gonna make these tackles.
Okay.
And we're gonna do whatever, we're gonna vote for whatever we want to vote for. But I just think I'm interested now in how it is in the locker room too, because of the divisiveness, because how it got so nasty. But we would be in there, and just different people, different guys, even sexualities. Like, you wouldn't know if a dude,
Didn't matter.
This dude's that you knew the dude was gay. Who cares?
Yeah.
Bruh, go catch that ball, score a touchdown, and we good to go.
Okay.
I think nowadays it becomes, I don't know if it's social media, I don't know what it is. I think nowadays it's bigger, and now people are forced to judge you on that. Man, we trying to get more points than the other team every Sunday, and that's what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah, everything RC said.
Okay.
Channing mentioned social media, everything overinflated and exposed, and people are going to show you who they are.
Right.
At the end of the day, you're going to say, you know what? I'm here to make my bread, take care of my family, win these championships, win these games, try to win a championship. We're good. You do your job on Sunday, I do my job on Sunday. I don't care whatever else you do in your personal life, that's your personal life.
I mean, every athlete remembers when they were an underdog. That time they weren't supposed to be a certain thing, but they flipped the script and they made it happen. I mean, shoot, I was an undrafted dude right? So to get to a position where you're not only making teams, but you become a starter, you play in Super Bowls. I just remember what that entire journey was like, and every step was like me disproving or proving to myself that I could be something people said I couldn't.
RCU did flip the script, and Visible is flipping the script as well by offering the same flat rate on wireless every single month. No hidden fees, no taxes, and no stores, because this thing's all digital.
So kick off 2025 by switching to Visible. Lock in a rate of $20 a month for 24 months. Taxes and fees included with code PIVOT24. Visit Visible.com for unlimited data and unbeatable value.
You'll get one-line wireless with unlimited data, talk, text, and hotspot on Verizon's 5G network. That's up to $120 in savings. Switch now at Visible.com.
Ends 12/2/24. New members only. Service and Visible plans for 24 months required for full promotional values. Additional terms apply. See website for network management details.
You come from an intellectual home, right? When you spoke about the education and the things that your mother acquired through her educational journey, and you go to Stanford, right? Stanford, right?
Yeah.
You know, like when you think about that school, I don't think of sports first, even though I know so many football players that have gone there, the John Elways and the Christian McCaffreys and people that have played well, Justin Reed now. And you start in economics, and that is a very sensible, practical major, right? If I'm a traditionalist as it comes to education, I say, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
This is a way that you can go earn a degree that allows you to come back to your community and help your community grow through what you can teach them, the things you can give them. How does it come to be where you go, I'm finna call my mama and tell her I'm gonna be an actor? What was that decision making like?
Okay, so I acted in high school.
Right.
And I remember I did a play freshman year. It was Godspell. And at the end of it, there's this thing, like Christ comes off the cross and you sing the song, Prepare Ye the Way of the Lord. And it's only 3 nights over Thanksgiving weekend. And one night we're carrying Christ out and the people stood up and started applauding before we even finished the show. And me and my boy who were next to each other, he's still an actor too. We like took a bow next to each other and we're like, we gotta keep doing this shit, man, this is awesome. Because it was the first time that I experienced the high that I'd only felt playing basketball or football. The high of performance, the rush of the crowd, that sort of interplay, the energy that you get when the kickoff's coming and you're on kickoff team and you're just running to blast somebody as hard as you can, and you hear people just like, I didn't know that you could feel that particular high without feeling any pain. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like maybe this is something to do. But I didn't think it was a prudent thing to pursue in terms of a career, because I was like, this is starving artist, right? I didn't go to Stanford to become a starving artist. I did a play my freshman year. Joe Turner's Come and Gone by August Wilson. And I have a professor, his name Harry Elam Jr., Dr. Harry Elam Jr. He was just recently the president of Occidental University, and he was a professor of mine. He directed this play. And he was a black man. And I think this is huge because I wound up doing this play, and I had a great time with it, and I got a really good reception from it. And he told me afterwards, he goes, look, I know you're not gonna major in this, but I think you really get a lot of enjoyment from being on stage. And I know that this drama department gets something by virtue of having you be a part of it. So why don't you just keep auditioning for plays while you do your stuff? And that's what I did. I kept auditioning and I would do shows here and there, et cetera. And anytime I did a show, my grades in econ, my other grades got better, because I was doing something that fed me on a soul level, right? Not just the prudent thing that I thought I was supposed to be doing, but like something that like the universe, God was saying like, doesn't this feel right? And when I made that priority, that feeling, that light inside of me the priority, rather than some sort of end distant thing about what I was supposed to do, what was the prudent thing to do, then I prayed, because I know my mom was gonna ask me if I prayed about it. And it was such a still, small voice saying, I've been trying to tell you for a while now. Like, you're the one who's been doing other stuff, trying to do this, trying to do that. I've been telling you for a while. And I was like, oh, my bad. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, you gotta kind of get quiet with it every once in a while, because you'll have so many people telling you what you're supposed to do with your life, You should go this way. You should go that way. Like, don't rock the boat at ESPN. Don't do, so many voices saying so many different things that at a certain point, you got to get quiet and just know for yourself, right? And so I said, Mom, I'm thinking about changing my major. She said, okay. I said, I'm thinking about changing it to drama. She goes, did you pray about it? I said, yes, ma'am, I did. And she said, that's the way you feel led? I said, yes, ma'am, I do. And she said, you do you. She come to every show. Like, my mom now has been living with ALS for the past 6 years. But before that, she came to everything. Nothing but love, support. Because about half of us that pursue the arts, you have parents that back you. Half of us have people that are like, well, when you come to your senses, I'll be there for you. Mom was there from Jump Street.
But you talk about the struggling actor, but did you really ever, struggle? Because if you look at the resume,
Yeah.
Private school,
Yeah.
got into Stanford,
Yeah.
got a degree from Stanford,
Right.
Then went to NYU.
That's right.
Master's at NYU.
Come on.
In fine arts.
Yes, sir.
Then you go on to become one of the biggest actors in the world.
I'm doing all right.
Is it? You talking about struggling actor? I don't think your ass ever struggled. It don't seem like it looking at the resume.
Okay, so when I graduated from NYU, Stanford, with the Pell Grants that Brown had at that time, I left Stanford University, which was around $25,000 a year, owing $12,000 total. So Uncle Sam hooked your boy up at that time. Go to NYU, got a full ride there, but you still have to take out loans just to live in New York City. You defer. You guys don't know anything about deferments or anything like that. The way like regular people like pay for school when they done, they ain't got no money. You Negroes just paid it off. You didn't have nothing. You have to like keep pushing off when you can pay these things back until you got some income coming in. My prayer to God, chant, was, can I make a living doing what it is that I went to school to do? I said, God, I don't want to wait tables. I don't want to bartend. I don't want to temp. If I can just make money doing this thing that I love, I'll be happy. And the first job I got was a small play. I didn't have any lines. It was just movement or what have you, making $300 a week. I was living in Harlem, 125th and 5th Avenue. I had a 4-story walk-up. It was a shared bathroom for the hall, not a bathroom for the apartment, a bathroom for the hall, a furnished room with a hot plate and a window. I had my little green fan that rotated like this on your boy. Summer of 2001 in New York City, right before 9/11, hot as could be. I would lay down on top of the sheets, gentlemen, in my birthday suit. Not because I'm sexy, because I was hot as hell. I would get up off the bed and there'd be a perfect sweat imprint of my body on top. The water pressure at the top floor of the building was so bad because it just got worse the higher up you went. It felt like a little trickle. I had to move my body around to get this little trickle so I could wash myself off, okay? This room cost your boy $85 a week, and I was making $300 a week. And I told my manager, who's still my manager at this time right now, she goes, well, hopefully it'll go up from there. And I was like, 300? I'm clearing 215? You can't tell me nothing, son. I was so happy that I didn't have to do anything else to pay the bills.
Right.
You go to the Chinese shop, you get a lunch special. That lunch special can last you from lunch to dinner. You know what I'm saying? Like, you figure it out. At no time did I feel poor. Was I below the poverty line? Absolutely. But all my needs were met. So in terms of that, I have always been able to have a job in acting. The longest that I've gone without wanting a job early in my career is about 4 months, right? Where I've had friends go 12, 14 months, 2 years, et cetera. If I ever tried to complain about 4 months, they'd be like, oh, poor Sterling. It must be so hard for you. But I was never complaining about anything. Like, I have been incredibly blessed. Yeah.
Everything Channing said about the educational side of you and the first black man to win Golden Globes, right? And that
In the category of best
in
lead
your
actor in the
category,
drama. Yeah.
same thing with screen actors.
Yeah.
With that though, how do you stay grounded with all that success? You're still a Saint lunatic.
Yeah. I am. Shout out to Nelly and the crew. When I think about the firsts that have transpired, I'm like, oh, this stuff, this is crazy. This is weird. Like, it's 2000, whatever it is. Like, that's for Sydney. That's for James Earl. That's for all them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm actually sort of shocked when I hear about things. Me and Jeffrey Wright, we were the first 2 actors in a film to be nominated for lead and supporting in the same film. And we're like, this hadn't happened before? This didn't happen in Glory? This didn't happen in da-da-da-da-da? You know what I'm saying? Your kids keep you humble. You know what I'm saying? Like, to them, you're just dad. I don't feel like I'm a first dude. I feel like I'm a brother from the Lou who is just living his dream out loud, right? So I guess I don't get caught up in anything else, man. And I guess to a certain extent, because what you are as an actor is you try to be a vessel for things to move through or whatnot. And I mean this in the most sincere and not like pontificating sort of esoteric way. It's all God. It's all to God be the glory. And I don't mean that in a falsely humble way. I feel like I'm good at what I do. I feel like I put in the work. I have an ethic and a perspective and history doing it that when I show up, I know what I'm doing. But still, it's God. There are some moments that I will watch on This Is Us, and I'll be like, yo, I don't know what happened. I don't know how I did that, to be honest. Like, I know that I made myself available for it to happen. Have you ever had play? And look, you guys are all bad men. You may have broke one, like you may have thought it was only going for 7, and you wound up taking it to the house, and you're like, oh, snap, I just took it to the house. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, those moments, same thing happens on screen. Where it's like you put in the time and you put in the reps so that the muscle memory is there and so that you can just react, right? You don't want to get caught thinking too much, right? You want to be cerebral in terms of how you prepare. But when you're actually there, you're like, oh, my man's going to overcommit. I know the cutback is, and you just do it.
Look at you.
You just do it. You think, you know what I'm saying? You're not overly thinking, you just go. That's how I feel about it. And that's why I don't think too much about the firsts and everything. I'm still just trying to be in the moment.
Fellas, arguably, the best team in the league right now is Detroit. They are whooping people. And Dan Campbell is a trailblazer. He's bringing it back. Physical football, getting downhill, playing defense. Even Hutchinson goes down and they still holding people down. And as we talk about Dan Campbell, you know who else are trailblazers? The JBL Tour Pro 3s. They're trailblazing this thing in earbuds.
And the JBL Tour Pro 3 earbuds are packed with innovation because you can't stand out when following others. And that's what we're all about at The Pivot.
The JBL Tour Pro 3 earbuds are the first earbuds on the market with a touchscreen smart charging case for one-touch control. I mean, you can control your audio without even reaching for your phone. There's also EQ customization and true adaptive noise canceling.
And with its built-in one-of-a-kind audio transmitter, you can plug and play with all the devices. You're on the plane, you got it. You got the PlayStations, you got it. You got the iPads, you got it. Man, JBL Tour Pro 3s, they figured this thing out.
Plus, you get spatial 360 sound that takes any audio and turning it into an immersive 360 experience.
The JBL Tour Pro 3 is the Pivot's go-to. First doesn't follow. The new JBL Tour Pro 3. Grab a pair at jbl.com.
So I got a moment for you.
Go.
You're a coach.
Yeah.
And your star player, linebacker.
Yeah.
He likes to hang out at strip clubs. And he came in late. Meetings at 8, he got in at 8:10, but you know he smells like Henny and smoke.
Okay.
How do you get that player's attention?
You gotta
tell him first.
can
No,
make
you're
eye
a coach
contact.
right now.
Yeah, you're a coach.
Yeah, you the coach. You the head coach.
I'm the coach.
The
You the
head
head
coach.
coach. So let's say a team like the Miami Dolphins.
Yes, in Miami.
At a time.
A lot of strip clubs.
Yeah.
Might be
So
going
you
to-
a head coach.
Might be going a certain way.
Yeah, this player was a 3rd-round draft pick from the University of Florida.
Top talent.
Top talent. When he walked in, you could smell the Tootsies on him.
In the moment. Let's go, coach.
I'm gonna pull you to the side.
Okay.
You know, we're gonna have a conversation about the kind of behavior and the kind of like sort of work ethic that is anticipated in this particular environment. I don't believe in shaming people. I don't think you actually get the best out of people. Different coaches are different, and I think things have evolved over time. And I'm curious, especially about Coach Tomlin, like how he did things, because I don't feel like it's always going to elicit the response that you want from the player, right? Like, you talk to them about, especially if I can relate to them brother to brother, in terms of the kinds of opportunities that are provided for us, the level of investment that is placed into these individuals or what have you, sometimes you gotta help them understand the situation that they're in. Because young people, everybody in the league, for the most part, there's a few older, are young men. They're really babies by and large, you know what I'm saying? And so you're asking them to behave in an incredibly professional way, and they may not have received that much tutelage in terms of what that means. They got money in their pocket for the first time in their lives, burning a hole in it. You understand? And so you have to be sensitive to all of that, right? That's, you know.
So here's my question, because you were bringing up a lot of sports analogies as it relates to acting, right? And you mentioned like Fred breaking a big run. So we had this saying, right? It's never as good as you think. It's never as bad as you think. And so you'd play a game and you'd be like, man, I snapped. And then you go watch the film, you be like, oh, I'm glad they ain't throw that one right there. Ooh, I'm glad Troy was inside right there to miss that tackle, right? You go through that. And then there's some games like you go home dejected. And that's the ones where you watch the film at the house before you get there because you want to prep all your reasons before they get to the plays at work, right? So I didn't been through it. So when play 24 come up, on play 12, I said, yeah, you see, they was already setting something up right there, coach. I was, right? So what, have you ever had a time though on set where, because I know y'all film kind of out of order sometimes, where you feel like, man, I snapped, and you knew it was great, and then you actually saw it on film and it was as beautiful as you thought it was, and it made you feel all the things you felt like you put into it?
Yes, there are times like that. I would say for the most part, especially on camera, there's a point in time in which like you have an idea of what you want to do on screen, and then there's what happens. And there's a little bit of a disconnect. You're like, oh, I thought I was doing this, and it looked like that. And I was like, man, I gotta work on that. Slowly over time, those things sort of kind of mesh with one another, and what you think is actually what you wind up seeing. I'm okay watching myself on camera. A lot of actors have a difficult time doing it. I feel like you learn each time you watch. So you gotta sort of be present to that. But then at the same time, like I'm not watching me, I'm watching the character. So it's almost like I'm watching it as an audience member. And I'm never too self-critical. I have a lot of grace for Sterling. And I feel like I want most people to have more grace with themselves. Because I feel like a lot of people can beat themselves up. There are times when you're on camera, a line will go out of your head, and you rehearsed, you worked on it, you know this thing, but the camera comes on, and an airplane flies by, or something happens, and as a young actor, sometimes you just go through this litany of profanity. Shit, fuck, goddamn, motherfucker, goddamn. And the only thing that happens is you only succeed in taking yourself out of the moment. I'm trying to have a conversation with Chen. If I don't remember the line, I want to stay in this conversation as best as I possible, and then line. And then I keep talking. You know what I'm saying? Rather than doing the thing that sort of disconnects me and takes me out of it and everything like that, just try to stay with it as best that you possibly can. Because sometimes some really lovely, what they call happy accidents will come out of it, right? If you say a line and I can't understand you, instead of like saying like, oh, I didn't, just like, what'd you say again? But say it in character. And like sometimes it'll make it into the thing, you know what I'm saying? If you stay in the moment and it's authentic to the storyline, a lot of things you can get away with, right? So I don't know if that answered that question exactly, but there are times early in my career, I would say, where I watched myself and I was like, that wasn't good, bro. That wasn't good. But I think I've had grace with myself for a long time to say that it can be better. I'll do that better next time, right? Like it wasn't exactly the thing that I'm most proud of, but like I'll do better next time.
What'd your mom dislike the most? Watching Starved and Adam the first time?
Come on, man.
Or
Look at this.
when Roland cheated on his wife? Which one? Cause I know she was hot about one of them.
She didn't like none. Really, Roland. Because she was a fan of the show. So Roland on Army Wives was a psychiatrist, and he worked with a lot of people in the military who had PTSD. His wife had PTSD, right? And when she came back, she was a little all over the place, right? Not quite fitting back in with society, and it put a little bit of a strain on their marriage. And my mom would call me up and she's like, I'm so happy that Joan has Roland because he understands what she's going through, and it's just such a beautiful relationship. Now, at the time, I had already blown the backside out of this other chick that they brought in on the show, right? And I was like, oh, thanks, Ma, I appreciate it. This is so sweet. I knew in 3 weeks, Mom was gonna see said backside blown out. So we just kept talking to each other, and then when the episode came, my mom didn't call me. My mom called me after every episode of Army Wives, bro. And then she didn't call me. And then another week went by and she didn't call me because they would go, previously on Army Wives, and they just watched Brown blowing the backside out of his chest. And then when she finally called me, she called me, she's like, do they have to keep showing that mess?
That's hilarious.
She was so hot. We shot that in Charleston, South Carolina. And even people like in Charleston, because it's like a nighttime show. People get invested. And they would yell at your boy, how dare you do that? I'm like, I'm Sterling, leave me alone. I got a wife named Ryan, y'all don't know me.
To that point. So you didn't tell Mama about Roland.
No.
But you have to tell Ryan if something's coming up that you might
She likes
give
a
a
little,
heads
she
up.
likes a little prep. I think it's smart to give wife prep. It's also smart to introduce her to any love interest beforehand so they feel like they know each other and they have a bit of a rapport. It's a weird thing that we're asked to do in this business, but the currency that I have is that before Brown had to do any sort of love scenes, or she was first. My wife was first. And, I love this. This is my favorite story. I asked my wife one day, I said, yo, who is like your celebrity crush? Like, who would it be? And she says, Boris. She didn't hesitate. Boris Kojo, all right? 2 or 3 months later, she's playing Boris Kojo's wife. I'm shooting a show up in Vancouver, and she goes, look, there's a love scene. And I was like, all right, do you? Don't embarrass the family. That's always my thing. Make them look like you know what you're doing. But I said, like, is it a rated R thing? She's like, no, it's PG, whatever. I was like, okay, so can you put the Band-Aids on? There's Band-Aids that we use when we're not showing everything. And so she's like, yeah, I'll wear the Band-Aids. I was like, cool. So she calls me up after. I go, how'd the scene go? She's like, listen, it was really humid, and I didn't want to be unprofessional. I was like, okay. She's like, so I couldn't really keep the Band-Aids on. I was like, oh, so you wanted naked titties on Boris's chest, right? And she's like, no, Sterling, I really tried. I didn't want to stop production. I said, no, you wanted naked titties on Boris's chest. And that's fine. But I will say this. If it was Boris Yeltsin and not Boris Kojo, she would have been taped up. She would have been all covered up, Jack. I'm telling you. So since that happened first, she can't really get too mad at Brian.
That is crazy.
So the relationships on This Is Us were all amazing.
Yeah.
Your relationship with Susan was
Yeah.
like the relationship on the show.
Yeah.
That it showed the humanity of like the ups and downs and the adversities that come in marriage.
Yes.
But also the strength. Yeah. And it was a different strength from like the other ones on the show because
Sure.
it was the how to support a black man strength,
Yeah.
how to support a black woman, how to create a black family.
Yeah.
How much of your own personal life do you have to draw on for something like that? And what sort of connection do you have to have with Susan in order to bring that to light?
Susan Kelechi Watson is one of my favorite people on this planet. We went to NYU together. So I was a couple of years ahead of her, but we approached the work in a very similar way, and we have history. And the history helps, right? It also helps that I'm a very curious person. So if we're on set or off set, I ask a lot of questions just so that we can sort of like get the conversation flowing. Because I think it's much easier to replicate a relationship that you have off screen, on screen, rather than just trying to like make it up from scratch without talking to your co-star, right? I'm also married 18 years to Ryan Michelle Bathay, who is the love of my life, right? So similar to Randle, you know, we met in college, and even though we had a little bit more off and on than Randle and Beth, we've been in each other's lives since age 18, right? So there's definitely something to draw from that. There is also just this wonderful opportunity that Sue and I felt that the show gave us to represent Black love in the best way possible, right? Because you don't get a chance to see it all the time. Sue's a big Martin fan, and she's like, yo, we doing like Martin and Gina, SK, like, let's go out here and make it happen. But it's true, because we had such love for each other, and we knew we got a chance to be the #1 show on network television for 6 years running. And a lot of folks that watched the show didn't look like me and Sue. Like, it was very big across the country. So we felt like, oh my goodness, we get a chance to show this loving couple go through ups and downs, highs and lows, etc., but ultimately come and have each other's back unequivocally for the world to see, right? Because sometimes you're aware of the misconceptions and the misrepresentations of what they think we are. So we have to have as vast a canvas, because nobody's a monolith, a diorama of experience. So we can say, like, you may think we're these things, we're this thing too, right? So it was a joy to do that with my girl.
But your wife with the Band-Aids,
right.
you mentioned your children earlier and being able to kiss them on the lips.
Yeah.
Recently, Denzel talked about Gladiator 2. I
Yeah.
think it was a scene they cut out.
Yeah.
Are there any limits in acting? Or when you want to be the best,
Sure.
is there anything that's a no?
I'm not interested in like visceral representations of harm to women sexually. This is not what and I'm sure there's stories that will require certain things. Like back in the day, there's a movie called The Accused. There's a movie called Irreversible, where they show this scene in reverse. I personally don't like to carry that energy around, because to a certain extent, you have to step inside of it. I don't know if I want that. For me?
Yeah.
For me personally. In terms of, I will see things that happen. Like on my Instagram feed, every year I will come and support LGBTQ youth. You wear a purple shirt that says, I support LGBTQ youth, right? And then you'll have people say, like, I thought you were a child of God. You Hollywood now, like, you don't understand? I was like, no, I just have love for people.
Right.
Period, point blank. Like, that's it, right? So if there's a character that I think has an interesting journey, that has a wonderful story to tell, and I feel as if I'm equipped to help bring that person to life, we go from there. And the things that may make me uncomfortable about it are opportunities for me to sort of recognize it, like, oh, this is not the easiest thing for me to do. What does that say about me? What is it that I have to like learn to address so that I can inhabit this character as fully as possible? I love the work. I love figuring out what makes other people who they are. And again, because I lead with love, it gives me a level of understanding that I may not have had before that point in time. And I'm curious for Denzel, like, I mean, did they screen it? Did they test it? And they said that the scene ultimately didn't test well. Did it detract people from the film? Like, they have lots of different reasons for why they'll do those things, et cetera. But no, like, the roles that scare you the most are usually the ones that you're supposed to be doing.
Like that.
Is that why you had to go take a lover?
There you go, see, look.
Because he mentioned the kiss, so I thought we was going I have a question, because you keep talking about Ryan.
This nigga.
Were you like, Ryan, I'm not gonna wear my shirt the whole movie on American? Did you have to tell her that? Like,
No.
American Fiction, I'm never gonna have a shirt on. I'm gonna be in swimming trunks.
No, because that wasn't the plan. What happens is you go into these costume people and you change clothes, and then they see you. And then they go, you know what? We could just do that.
So you try to just tell the world I was fine, so they was like, hey.
Listen, I've been in this business for a while. A lot of costumers will see Brown and they'll be like, oh, we can scale this back a little bit. That's just, I try to take care of myself, RC, so I can run around after these kids. That's really the primary reason. What you looking at?
I know what you be doing in the costume room.
What am I doing?
So what y'all wanna? Is it over there, or do you want me to go over here?
Hey,
yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
Or is it this
He
way?
was naked the whole damn
He's
movie.
naked the whole movie.
Acting crazy too. I want
Go.
no about that about like the characters.
Yeah.
Like, does it change your day? Cause you had some wild characters through the years.
Sure.
Or just something different than the guy we're sitting with today.
Yeah.
Like, can you just walk into this house and just become that person? Or when you leave a full day of work being another human in your mind, like you said, you gotta embody that person. Can you get in your car and just be Sterling Brown again? Or you might go home and Ryan say something to you. No, I ain't go. Oh, no.
She'll say there'll be remnants,
Yeah.
right? Randle's easy to carry around for 6 years because he's asking me to sort of dive into the best parts of me. Your kids will make you come back real quick. They're like, they just need dad. And then in that moment, you hear the word, like it's like, oh, what's up, big boy, what you need? You know what I'm saying? Like just like that. So I would say if I had success came earlier for me, before children, I probably would have been a bit more methody than what I am now. And I am, when I'm on set, I'm sort of in a groove, in a pocket. I may not be exactly in character, but like if I have to have an argument with you that day, you know, I may come up to Sue, like in season 3, where Beth and Randle are going through stuff. Like we come up to each other, I say, I can't talk to you today, Sue. And she said, can't talk to you either, SK. I was like, all right, I'll see you later. You know what I'm saying? And we have an understanding.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? Like you'll hear about like Denzel not talking to Russell Crowe during like American Gangster, that sort of thing. Like, I don't think I'm quite as intense because I'll give you a little bit of a warning, like, I see you, but right now I can't. And then I go do my thing.
I have a question. Are you breaking out the Pilgrim Rick hat this week? Like that's the biggest holiday on the show. So what is Sterling K. Brown and his family like on Thanksgiving?
Rye does most of the cooking. Like I will sous chef a little bit, but she's really the chef. It's me taking the fellas outside and throwing the football around. We have like a little bit of a turkey bowl with some friends and just trying not to tear a hamstring at this point in time. And just have a good time, you know, like it's the routes get run a little less crisp than they were before. But you still have fun with it, man. Like it's a time to give thanks. I'm not as Randle does everything to the nth. You know what I'm saying? Again, part of it just sort of like how he's wired in order to feel accepted. I feel like I don't walk around with the same level of anxiety that Randle does and a bit more grace for self. So I just try to enjoy, like if they need me, I'm a role player. Right, you need something from me? I gotta run and grab something from here, and just make sure these fellas are having the best time possible and not spending too much time playing the daggum PS5. That's really what.
You got to be on stage, what was it, like 2 decades after Andre, God rest his soul, passed, and receive an award that he received two decades before you. What was it like to be able to stand sort of in the same graces as someone who walked a very similar path from you?
Andre Braugher, man, and that goes back because he went to Stanford.
I know.
And I remember like people saying like, oh, you kind of remind me of Andre Braugher. And Homicide was on at the time, and you'd be watching Homicide and be like, yo, this brother's cooking. Like he's killing it. And then he played Thomas in Glory. And you would talk about tears, like Thomas had tears. He came and spoke to us at NYU. And he just sort of like dropped some tidbits on us about just love and how he navigated this business and whatnot. I remember him saying something specifically. Mahershala Ali, who's the year above me at NYU, we're all in school together. And he was asking like, what's it like when you see opportunities that you know you are worthy of go to your contemporaries who are white, but may not have put in the same amount of time, may not have the same level of skill or whatnot. What is it like for you to see those things go by? And without blinking, he's like, I don't have a white Andre Braugher to put out into the world to figure out if that's true or not. He said, I'm just gonna take what I got and kill it. Like if I keep killing what they give me, then they're gonna keep giving me something, right? And I think like that really hit me. I was like, I don't have to worry about what any of the Chris's are doing. I don't have to worry about any of the Ryans are doing or whatnot. Like let them do their thing. I'm talking about Gosling and Reynolds. You know what I'm saying? I ain't talking about you, RC. But I'm saying like, I don't have to worry about that. Like I can just kill what's in front of you. Murk that as hard as you possibly can, and then move on to the next one and do it again, and do it again, do it again.
So we talking about the next one.
Yeah.
We're talking about killing. Did Xavier kill the president?
Oh my goodness. I can't talk about this show too much.
I know, but...
But I can tell you it comes out on January 28th.
28th. Day after my birthday.
Hulu, day after your birthday, friend.
I'm waiting on it.
And check it out. It's created by Fogelman, and it's got a completely different feel than This Is Us. It's a bit more of a thriller and whatnot. And the folks who have watched it says that it has them on the edge of their seat. So I'm curious to see what you guys think once you check it out.
Yeah, and for people that don't know, he was the last one that saw the president alive.
This is correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I can't wait.
I appreciate it.
I can't wait.
Is there a role or some kind of movie? They can say it's a thriller.
Yeah.
We're used to seeing you as a loving dude, but
Yeah.
you know, American Fiction was a little off the This Is Us path.
Sure.
But is there any role that you want to do that you haven't done?
I think there's a couple of genres that I would like to get into, like a great horror, like a great Get Out sort of social commentary horror thing will be a lot of fun. So Jordan, holler at your boy Pia, because I love Get Out. It's like one of my favorite movies. Rom-com. I would love a great romance. Give me that Hitch joint, you know what I'm saying? Like, those movies, they stopped making them.
Yeah.
I feel like there's unless you have like valid IP with the MCU or DC universe, like they stopped making like movies that are just sort of feel-good things, You Got Mail, that type of thing that we grew up on. I would love to do that charming, meet-cute movie sort of thing. So those two things. Other than that, the mandate for Brown is to just try to keep surprising people. When they think that this is what you're about and this is your lane, just try to expand that lane a little bit and be like, oh, this dude can do anything. I want to be a great actor. I love it so much. I love people so much. I love watching people walk by and wonder, like, how did this person get to where they are in life? And what was their story? Like, I don't dismiss anybody because I find everybody fascinating.
You're not a great investor, right?
Investor?
Yeah, because a friend of yours told you to buy into Black Panther, and you said they never make a black superhero movie. You could have been rich, but you are rich, but you could have been richer.
I could have been richer.
Could have been richer. You chose to go the other way. But in Jobu, though, a small part in the movie was the largest catalyst to the entire theme of the movie. As a black actor who speaks about representation, and that movie, from the Marvel standpoint, represented us more than any movie ever had. It was a small part. What was that feeling like, though, to be a part of something so monumental?
Joy. Right, I read that script and I was like, oh, this is about to be a game changer. Because to his point, to the story that RC is talking about, I used to read, Reggie Hudlin did a series of Black Panther comics, and it was called like, Who is the Black Panther? And I remember reading them in 2001 and being like, yo, these joints are off the chain. Then doing Army Wives, a friend of mine was like, do you like comics? I was like, I don't read a lot of comics, but I do read these Black Panther comics. He said, you should get the rights to this so in case they make a movie, like you'll be able to have some sort of piece of that. And I said to him in 2008, man, they ain't never gonna make no black superhero movie. You go, give me the Debbie Downer, right? So fast forward, you get a chance to be a part of this thing. I auditioned. It's one of the last things that I auditioned for. I was like, I'll do whatever I have to be a part of this joint. And he said, look, Brown, this is great. Like, I think I needed you to be a little bit bigger to play this one role. Like the one that Winston Duke wound up getting, he's like, look, this is great, it's a great read, but like, he kinda gotta be real big. So I got this one part though, and I think it's a good one. It's not a lot of time, but I need a really good actor for it. So I'm gonna show it to you, and if you respond to it, you let me know. I read it, I was like, bro, how do I be down? I knew it was history. I knew when you read it, when you get the endorsement of the largest driver of pop culture today, which is the MCU, and they are willing to invest the dollars to tell the story and to tell it right, to have somebody, a black man behind the helm, to have a black producer, Nate Moore, being a part of this like creative group, I knew it was going to be history. I was like, just tell me where I can fit in. Same thing with American Fiction. Like some people would be like, you're gonna be second fiddle to Jeffrey Wright? I was like, Jeffrey Wright is a beast. Let me see this role. If I think I can kill it, then I will do it. And I saw the role, I was like, oh, there's opportunities here. So it's not about necessarily the size of it, But it's like, do I get a chance to be a part of a story that I think is worth telling? And in each of those cases, I was like, oh, this story is dope. And I remember opening night for that movie, man, us walking out on stage, my brother Chad with us, and everything. Like, the love in the house was so immense. It was more than just a movie, right? Like, it was a moment. It was a moment that hopefully leads to a movement that opens up other opportunities for other things to be done like that. Because it also sort of talk about 10-year-old Sterling's perception of blackness or whatnot. And now we're talking about the diaspora. For such a long time, I don't know if you guys heard these conversations back in the day about like, Africans don't like you because, you carry this around and sort of breed this sort of like dissension amongst us or whatnot. And just sort of recognizing that like we all come from the same place. Like in Joe Boo's mandate was like, look, I'm trying to help people who look like us everywhere, right? Like that was the thing. And I was like, when my son took it, and then he tried to take it further, I said, and then when he shot his girlfriend in the head who was black, I was like, oh, that's not what I want you to do, boy. I'll just keep the black people alive. But it was such a beautiful moment for me to also sort of release into like, oh, there's Brits here, there's people from the islands here, there's people from the States, there's people from the continent, and to come together to make this piece of art sort of allowed me to sort of like wash away this idea that like I need to be separate and distinct from, but we can all be in this thing together. Yeah.
We always ask our guests,
Yeah.
what's their biggest pivot? Is that one moment in life that you go back and look on and say, without this moment happening, I wouldn't be who I am?
I could say when I decided to be a drama major, like that was really big. I'll say this. This is something that I don't talk about that often. Doing a TV show called Army Wives that was on Lifetime, and it was the #1 show on Lifetime the whole time that it was on. And I reached the end of my contract, and folks were re-upping to do further seasons. And I said, I think I've done everything with this character that I want to do. And I think it's time for me to move on. And they're like, you being foolish, man. Like, you can wind up paying for your kids' college, you can wind up paying off the house, all this stuff. And I said, yeah, I know. But I feel like I've done everything that I want to do with it, and I want to see what else is out there. And you had a lot of people just sort of like getting really frantic because it's not usually how people operate, right? So the renegotiation leads with them sort of like coming in like up in the bag, right? I had an unrealistic number in my head. Said, if they reach this unrealistic number, I will stay for another, couple seasons, right? But it's unrealistic on purpose because I kind of feel like it's time for me to move on. So they kept upping the number, and I would talk to the other castmates who were in the renegotiation with me, and they're like, that's not bad. I was like, no, it's not bad, right? And they're like, you gonna do it? I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it. And the number, and because I kept holding out, they kept raising the number for everybody, right? And they ultimately got to a number where they plateaued at, and everybody's like, we're gonna take it. And I was like, you should take it. That's the right decision for you. It's time for me to move on.
Wow.
The showrunner asked me, he said, like, will you come back and just recur for a couple episodes so I can wrap your character up? I said, I'll do that. And he said, we'll pay you at the rate that we'll pay everybody else for those few episodes. Sometimes you gotta roll the dice, bro, and take a chance on yourself. And I feel like that was my moment of taking a chance on myself because it was 3 years between that and when OJ happened. I booked a pilot for AMC. At the time, Mad Men, Breaking Bad was popping off or whatnot. They had sort of greenlit everything that they were done. It was one of the first pilots that they shot that they didn't take the series. I was like, all right. And it was 3 years, and I remember I had auditioned for a few pilots. There was this show called Fargo, season 2 of Fargo. Didn't get that. So I'm doing a movie, and I'd auditioned for OJ, and 4 months had gone by without hearing anything. As a matter, and it was a great audition. And I say that because every once in a while you can see like the casting directors, and they're sitting, and they're watching you, and they're like this. They're watching. They're watching, just sort of excited. And then 4 months went by, and usually 4 months does kiss of death. So I'm going through my scroll and looking at all the roles that people have booked in pilot season that I auditioned for. I was like, oh, Bokeem Woodbine, good for him. da-da-da-da. Having a little bit of a pity party. And my manager called me and said, they want you to come in and test for OJ. I said, okay. And I go to the Fox lot, which is where it was, and I'm thinking most of the time you're going for a test for a TV show, it's like 3 or 4 people, because they don't like to put all their eggs in one basket. So I'm sitting on the couch, I'm waiting around, I'm sort of in my head doing my darting thing, etc. I see a brother like walk by, and I was like, oh man, he didn't even do the facial hair right. Like I'm looking at you, right? And then I see, I was like, he didn't even cut his hair. I shaved my head bald. I'm like, these brothers ain't serious. Turns out, these were just random Negroes walking the halls of Fox, right? They weren't even auditioning. I was the only person they brought back, right? So then I have the audition, and the producer still, she was, you know, she's nodding and looking forward or whatnot. And the other one was trying to keep his face cool. And then later on that day, I was taking my son to basketball practice, and they said, like, we're offering you the role of Christopher Darden. Little tear, little Denzel tear comes down the side. But I think back to that moment of like, I had to say no to something. And you guys will know this. Like, there's no negotiation unless you're willing to walk away from the table. Every once in a while, you have to say, like, I know what I have to offer, and I know that I've completed something in my life, and it's time for something else. So I would say that negotiation for Army Wives and how I chose to handle it, because I could have stayed safe and it could have gone on for a number of years. I just knew that there was something else. And it wasn't necessarily me. Again, like I said, God was saying, like, it's okay we're good. I did what I wanted you to do this for this time, and now there's something else. So that negotiation was big.
Love it.
Yeah.
Man, I've been wanting to do this for a very long time. I am so grateful that you decided to sit with us. It was everything I thought it was.
You were trying to make me cry. I know. I see how you bros do. Like I saw the one with Dez when he was like, I'm gonna break this out of my pocket. And so I'm reading this thing, and that brother was gone. He had me like, oh, Jesus. You carry this in your pocket?
Yeah. I knew it was real when Fred got up and hugged him. I was like, man, we're in trouble.
And even now, Viola, she just reposted it on her page the other day. Yeah.
Did she? Yes,
yeah,
right.
like this is real. But that's what it is. That's the
I'm actually
pivot.
disappointed you didn't cry, although I wouldn't have believed it because you cry so much on TV.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd have been like, he's faking.
I saved it.
I'd be like, Sterling's fake, man. Appreciate you, my boy. Thank you so much, man.
He gonna cry in the car.
I was like, he gonna cry.
That is something.
Hey,
Much respect, for sure.
Thank you.
bro, I remember, God, you don't understand, when I saw him, I didn't even want to talk to him about nothing else. Because I was in the middle of it at the time. Sterling had just broke down in his office. They had to come get him. Man, I was like, dang, Randle.
Let me be your friend.
I wanted to comfort him. Yeah, then, and next thing you know, he was out there in machines with Jennifer Lopez.
60 hours.
I was like, this ain't Randle?
You watch
This
60.
motherfucker's post-apocalyptic in AI world.
It must have been more than that. I mean, like, we have 106 episodes.
That's crazy. That's what I'm saying. You watch 60 hours of Randle. You ain't Sterling no more.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I can't do that.
Hey, bro, it was heavy on me, man.
You would watch it every second.
He tweeting about he crying.
Because it was the off season too, so I didn't have to watch football all the time.
Okay.
Like now I can't watch stuff like that.
Hold up, limitless. Niggas to me, got pinning it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling, got me up. On the mission, got me up. Knowing me, I got the key. On the vision, I can trust. Limitless. Niggas to me, got pinning it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling, got me up.